comment. I'm interested in any comments also. Dana.
I've read the book, and I was just so impressed with your mother. She was such a leader, and she was dealing with such grief. And I just think she was a mentor to so many, and probably didn't realize it herself as the woman of the coach who was killed.
Mm-hmm.
Could you share some about that?
Well,
Know what she done and what happened after that.
well, she kind of protected me from it, because she was pregnant at the time he died, and she protected me. And I know she was devastated, and it took her a while to get back going, but she had no choice. She had a son and another one on the way, so she had to kind of pick it up and and go for it. And she did it, and she went back to college, and she got her degree and became a teacher. And but one of the things that I mentioned, she always told me stories about my dad, and I know that was to kind of keep him alive for me, but I know it's probably also to keep him alive for her. But she taught for 25, 30 years, I think, and was really a leader in the school. And my stepdad, Red Hudson, was a great man also, and he was just like my dad, and he was really a good leader, and he gave this a lot of space, She was discreet about not saying too much or saying anything in front of him, but he also gave it space, and he honored, who we were too. And so she had a pretty good eye for men. One husband has a stadium named after him. The other husband has a school named after him in Garland. So she she did pretty good for herself. What else? Anything else?
I'll pose a question, sir. In the comic papers, when you suddenly get zapped with a brilliant, revelation, it's either a flash of lightning or a light bulb.
Mm-hmm.
Was the zapping moment for those kids, players, the instant when they pulled into that parking place to eat dinner and they saw the sign? What was the lightning bolt? Wow, I've changed my life moment for them. Or is there
For them, well, yeah, there were a lot of them that said, we didn't realize it should be any different. This has been happening all our lives. We didn't understand what he was doing until we heard him say this, and several of them told me, and it happened, I mentioned it just one time in the book, but it happened a number of times. And I think he came around, I don't think he handled it the same way the first time as he did. They learned, and he kind of...
So there's not a road to Damascus for Saul zapped. It was an ongoing.
Yeah, and of course every year it was a different group of kids, because first year a bunch of seniors graduated. So each young kid kind of came up, but I think that's when they realized, hey, he's fighting for us, and nobody's ever done that before. The previous coach thought treated us like we were a bunch of dirty little Mexicans, and here's this guy standing up for us, and I think that was the light bulb for them. Mm-hmm. And the light bulb I'm sorry?
For you.
Well, it kind of had to sunk in because I'd seen it, and that was one of the stories my mother told me. She said, he went there and they wouldn't feed him. He said, we're not going to have a game, and so they let him in. So I'd heard that all my life, but one night and this was nights and weekends kind of deal. I'd work from 7 to midnight and then all weekend, and one night about midnight, I was wordsmithing or, kind of refining or whatever, and I just read it 2 or 3 times. I thought, man, this is profound. He's going against his upbringing, probably. He's going against his contemporaries, because it was not encouraged to stand. It's not popular to be a civil rights champion back then. And here he is sticking his neck out fighting for these kids. So it was that, but it just hit me one night. I just thought, man, this is special. It was kind of common to me because I heard it so many times. Another of the times that she told me that She always talked about the day he threw the pass to tie Texas in Memorial Stadium for the first time they ever didn't lose in Memorial Stadium. It was a tie, 10-10. But the A&M annual said, Aggies win, 14-14. Literally. And he threw the pass, 2 minutes left, 75-yard pass or whatever, touchdown to tie the game. So she always told me about that. She told me about the restaurant scene, and she told me about the time when she took me out to the practice field, and all the Hispanic kids gathered up and taught me some cuss words, and I came home cussing in Spanish. And a bunch of them met their maker the next day with the Board of Education. Yeah.
Could you talk a little bit about the discipline, how he would go to their homes if they didn't show up, and how he didn't want them to be equipped?
Yeah, absolutely. First day, he went around. Well, when he first got there, he knew they didn't have much of a team. They had won 1 or 2 games the year before, so he figured. And Coach Barry had always told him, he said, if a good athlete sitting in the stands not going to do you any good, you need to get all the ones you can. So he walked around and asked around the neighborhoods, who are good athletes, who are the good players, and he tried to get all the players to come to the team meeting and all the athletes that did something else that hadn't played football, and got them to the meeting. And he gave them a speech, and a couple of them told me that they were expecting another flunky to be there, but he won them over that day. And one of the things he said was, and back up a little earlier, he noticed that the equipment was really shoddy. In fact, there was a kid that told me that he had tried to be on the B team the year before, but he couldn't get on the team until somebody quit so he could have a uniform. So he went to Coach Baty went to the school board. Principal couldn't get it approved. He said, I can't even get textbooks. You probably can't get, but I'll introduce you to him. So he did. He sold them on new uniforms. The athletic director told him, you better lock that locker room up because those kids will steal you blind. And he said, and this is, some of you remember this probably from the book, but he didn't like that idea. In the speech, he talked about, we probably hadn't been doing it right. We're going to start doing it right, starting right now. And oh, by the way, look at these great uniforms, da-da-da. All the kids are excited. Kids love new uniforms. And bright blue and the newest helmets, and none of them had face masks, by the way. So, Robbie. Robbie kids me about playing when they didn't have face masks. So, he said, see this equipment, we're going to put it in the locker room, but we're not going to lock the locker room. But if we lose uniforms, we're not going to play football either. So he gave them accountability. He told them he trusted them, and he kind of dared them, And so and one of the guys said, we used to steal stuff, but we didn't after that. Joe Cordova said that. Yes, sir.
I think one of the parts of the book that really was profound to me. Your daddy may have coached 1 or 2 years. Was it at Luling?
1 year at Luling.
And then he went.
Yeah.
So 1 year, at the end of the year, or at some point in time, the town gave him a car. And when he left, he goes,
Yeah, they gave him a car because it's the best season they'd had in years.
and he didn't take the car.
Yeah, he turned the car back in. Yeah,
They gave it to him
yeah,
ever and ever.
it's his car. Yeah. He said, I don't feel right taking this car with me. And before they gave him the car, this is kind of a funny story. I think this is in the book. I haven't read the book yet. I read about half of it this last week just so I could try to remember. But the day of the football banquet in Luling, a bunch of the kids came over to their house. I guess they always came over to the coach's house and hung around on the porch. And some of the mothers came and got my mother to, so let's go ride around. And she didn't really, she didn't want to go ride around, but she said, okay. So they took her around town and took her by the car lot, I guess, the car dealership, and said, oh, look at that car. Isn't that a pretty car? She said, "Oh, I don't like the color." Well, guess what? That night that was the car that was given to him. She changed her mind, I guess. Maybe that's the reason he gave it back.
Betty told him to leave it there. So how long did she stay in El Paso after?
About 4 days. We loaded up and left. They had that happened on a early Saturday morning, like midnight or 1 was the accident, and of course Saturday and Sunday. Saturday, my aunts and uncle came in from Dallas and from Albuquerque, and then they had a memorial service on Monday, and then they were going to have the funeral on Tuesday in El Paso. And the kids, but they said the kids couldn't go, and they were all in an uproar. And so they decided, okay, we'll have a memorial service on Monday. So she did that on Monday, funeral on Tuesday. We got on an airplane and left.
Well, there was a funeral in Paris.
There was a funeral in Paris also.
So there was a memorial in El Paso. Not
Well, yeah, a memorial for the kids on Monday in the school. And I have a recording of that. I've had this record. You know, it's a black record that's been wrapped up for, I've always had, never listened to it. I didn't know what it was. Turns out it's a recording of that memorial service.